Well, I definitely think it'll be a hybrid situation because the competing economic imperatives for different use cases are too compelling. For example, if I'm latency optimized, if I need real-time translation, for example, it's just much, much easier if that can be on device, no matter how smart the backend model is.
For sure.
The experience is going to be a lot better. With respect to privacy and private computing, of course, local can be preferable, but it can also be more fraught because people don't have enterprise-grade IT security. So if there's a piece of Android malware that spreads across like the Samsung App Store or something, and these things have happened in the past, like they've literally installed malware on all their phones before, then guess what? Like if your data is stored locally, that is compromised. And so, if we're talking about the tension between like decentralized and centralized systems, I think it's going to be mixed. But what I would say right now is that there is no competition between decentralized systems and centralized systems right now. And this is one of the things that Ambient is setting out to affect. Decentralized systems, to this point, have been vastly slower, vastly less intelligent, vastly less efficient, and vastly less scalable than centralized systems. It's a really unfortunate thing that doesn't have to be true, but that's just the way that has gone. And in order to create a hybrid future where we have all sorts of compute, where there's private compute clouds and decentralized private compute and edge computing, and everything is humming and interoperable, we need to focus on the core decentralized primitives, one of which is high-scaled verified inference, and thus ambient. So the final thing I would say is that the current lopsidedness of the market is very dangerous. The reason for that is if centralized alternatives are all that exist, then they will be increasingly incentivized to follow that opaque race to the bottom that we talked about earlier.
Sure.
And it's not just a race to economically optimize their inference delivery. It will be a race to achieve political ends that are favorable to their companies.
For sure.
Maybe those involve political manipulation. Maybe those involve catering to the whims of particular politicians, influence campaigns. We don't know how it will manifest, but there are just a variety of abusive dimensions that exist when you have this amount of power that can be effectively countered if there is a viable alternative. If there is a decentralized product that is equally intelligent, equally available, equally reliable, equally scalable, and people can just use that instead of being abused economically or politically manipulated, then it curbs the effective power of that system, because the owners and operators of that system realize that people will just leave their platform. They will have a reverse network effect if they don't abide by a certain level of basic network decency.
Good.
But if there is no other game in town, if there is no other show, then we will have another Facebook situation where Facebook is the de facto social network, and they have committed unlimited abuses of power against consumers and businesses and largely gotten away with it.
Like we talked about, they made the most money out of scammers. So a lot of loopholes there.
Yeah, Facebook, it's an article that just recently came out, because of court filings. Facebook found that they could profit maximize if they charge scammers more for the last 5% of their scam detection threshold. So Facebook had a meter that went up to 95%. And if you got to 90%, you were for sure a scammer. But what they would do is they would just charge you more money to place your scammy ads, and they would make billions. And then they would rake in that money until you hit 95%, at which point they would shut off your account. But by that time, the damage was already done. And if they had been moral economic actors, they would have stopped it at the 90% because they knew. They knew. And there's all sorts of documentation that they knew. So,
For sure.
yeah, we end up in this totally abusive situation as consumers if we don't build decentralized alternatives.